Hello, chess neurites. Most players dream of surviving a lost position and get away with a draw. But Hikaru Nakamura did not just survive, he turned it into a win. In this video, we'll look at his incredible escape against former world champion Vladimir Kramnik, a game that looked completely lost until Nakamura found hidden resources and kept on fighting, and eventually he flipped the script. This is how you fight back, even when the odds are against you. So let's look at the game. So Nakamura has white pieces and Kramnik is black, and this is a rapid game. At the beginning, this looks like a fine position for Nakamura because he has two pawns in the center and no other obvious weaknesses. But if we look at the position in a bit more depth, then we would recognize that things are not that simple. There is some pressure on this pawn. There are some tactical ideas available with knight takes d4. This bishop is also undefended, and that can actually create problems for Nakamura. So Nakamura played the move king e1. He's like, all right, let me just slide the king over to e1. So I'll defend this pawn with the rook and things will be safe. Now, Kramnik played a really strong move to get the advantage. But before we get to that, it's important to understand that what if Kramnik had played knight takes d4? So seems like a strong move, but doesn't work to get the advantage because there is knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, rook takes d4, bishop takes b5. The problem is that so many pieces got exchanged. Now it is opposite color bishop with rook endgame. Material is also equal, so it would not be too difficult for Nakamura to hold this. So this is what Nakamura had seen, and he played king e1, that all right, this knight takes d4 idea is not working. But Kramnik had seen further, and he played a really nice move, knight b4. He's like, I'm not going to play knight takes d4 and allow you to get into that equal endgame. I'm going to play knight b4, and either I'll get the double bishop advantage or I'll win some material. Now, if Nakamura plays a takes b4, then after bishop takes b5, things are actually not that great for Nakamura because Kramnik has the double bishop advantage. This pawn is also a bit weak. There is some pressure on the center as well. So it will be quite an unpleasant position for Nakamura to play. So now, what he does is, he recognizes that if he keeps the things simple, then he won't be able to fight back, and there are chances that Kramnik would be slowly but steadily outplay him. So he tries to complicate the matters. He plays bishop takes d7. Of course, there is no rook takes d7 because there is a takes b4. Knight c2 check was played. King d2. Knight takes a1. So Kramnik lost a piece, but he has gotten a rook for it. Now, Nakamura played bishop a4. This seems really bad for Kramnik because if this knight is lost, then Nakamura will have two minor pieces for the rook. And that's just great. Did Kramnik just blunder this? No, that was not a blunder. He had seen the whole thing. He had seen how he would escape with the knight, and the key move to see while playing that knight b4 variation is e5. So the bishop is not able to remain on this diagonal, and if the bishop does not remain on that diagonal, then the knight would escape through b3. So this was the plan of Kramnik. So Nakamura played bishop takes b5, knight b3 check, king e2. Now he is down an exchange for a pawn. He has some compensation, but definitely it is Kramnik who is pushing for the win. Then let's see how the game went on. So rook a8 was played. Kramnik gets the rook on the open file. Then Nakamura actually plays a d5, a natural move, trying to create pass pawn on the d file. And then Kramnik plays the move, knight c5. He wants to keep things solid, and also there are ideas of knight e4, and then Nakamura would be in bigger trouble. So rook c1 was played, then knight e4. Rooks got exchanged. Now the bishop is on c6. So even though Nakamura is down in material, but it's still not so easy for Kramnik to convert. But he will also slowly but steadily put pressure on Nakamura. So he brings the rook the open file. He has not blundered that pawn. So we plan to bring the rook on the second rank with a tempo, and then rook a2, target that a3 pawn. And then if a4, then also not a big deal. Check this, knight c3 check, and that pawn would fall. So now Nakamura has this pass pawn, but still Kramnik has enough resources to deal with it in case Nakamura pushes it. So Nakamura eliminates that knight, and then so Kramnik just gives an intermediate check, and he takes this. Now, the sole goal for both players will be this d pawn. If that pawn is lost, then Kramnik's winning chances would increase quite significantly. And for Nakamura, of course, it's that how to save that pawn. So Kramnik plays king f8, a very natural move. He wants to bring the king closer to that pawn. g3, just defending this pawn so the knight can move later at some point. And king e8 was played, bishop e3, then rook a5 was played. So Kramnik is actually provoking Nakamura to push the pawn to d6, to bring it on dark square. So the bishop can actually also put pressure on that. Rook d5 was played, bishop f4. Now, so in this position, seems like bishop f8 and this pawn would fall, but Nakamura might have some ideas of knight g5 and then maybe this, or maybe some type of ideas like this. So Kramnik was not in a rush. He played a calm move, f6. He is restricting this knight's position. Nakamura recognized that now the knight is not needed on f3. He brought it to d2. The idea is to bring it to c4 or e4 depending on the position. Then Nakamura played in this, so Kramnik in this position played the move king d7. Nakamura replied with knight e4. Once again, if f5, then there can be some knight g5 tricks and you can try to resist. So Kramnik played the move king e6, bishop d2, h6. He's like, now I'm going to actually play f5. I'm going to kick your knight and then I'll take this pawn. So bishop f8 and then something like this. The pawn would fall. In these type of positions, most players would actually give up. They would be like, all right, now f5, I had that resource of knight g5 check. Now my opponent has actually also stopped it. So what do I do? Nakamura is actually one of the best in the world when it comes to playing resilient chess. He just never gives up. And that is the quality of his that has been admired by almost all the players. And he showcases that here as well. He plays the move d7. Now, this just seems like, wait, what? Is he just giving up the pawn just like that? No. The thing is, if rook takes d7, then there is knight c5 check. But okay, Kramnik won't fall for it. He can just play king takes d7. No, not so easy. Nakamura had a trick for this as well, that is bishop takes h6. Because if bishop takes h6, then this, and then if this, and with king f3, king g4, it should not be. So king f3, king g4, f4, h5. This is just a draw. d7. It's really important. So Kramnik is putting pressure on this pawn. Nakamura knows that sooner or later it will fall. But he tries to make things practically difficult for Kramnik. And when such type of unpleasant situations, especially in the rapid time control, is faced, even by the former world champion, then there are chances that they can get a bit unsettled, a bit uneasy, make some mistakes. Now, the easiest move for Kramnik would have been just to play bishop f8, cover the square, and then he can play rook takes d7. He doesn't have to worry about knight c5 check. And he should be able to win that d7 pawn, and slowly but still, it will still not be that easy for him. But since he has shown that much technique, and Kramnik is one of the most great technical players, he should be able to convert this. But easier said than done. When you see moves like d7, not so easy to find the best moves after that. So Kramnik plays the move king f7. He's like, all right, I'm going to capture the pawn next, and there will be no knight c5 check. So now, is the pawn gone? No. Nakamura plays knight c5. He's like, I'll defend this pawn because rook takes c5, then I'll promote. So, of course, Kramnik is not going to let Nakamura promote that easily. So he plays the move bishop f8, putting pressure on the knight. He's like, I'll take your knight and then I'll target this pawn or something. So Nakamura plays bishop a5. Like, okay, if you take my knight, then I'll promote, and it will be an equal bishop endgame. So Kramnik played the move bishop e7. And now Nakamura is just waiting. He's like, all right, my knight defends the pawn, and the bishop is controlling this queening square. So this actually is just a draw. So Kramnik is not able to make much of a progress. So he played the move h5, and he played the move f5. But Nakamura can just wait. Now he just keeps on moving the king, the bishop. But of course, Kramnik is really ambitious when it comes to pushing for the win. And sometimes he over pushes. I'm pretty sure Nakamura was waiting for that. So till then, he's just moving the bishop, this, and now in this position. So Kramnik plays the move g5. He's like, all right, I'll try to make progress king side. H takes g6, and then he plays the move king g6, improving the king's position to try to put some pressure. Now, it's really important to understand that this king is not controlling the e6 square, and Nakamura makes use of it. How? Let's see. So he still plays the move bishop b6. Kramnik played the move bishop takes g5. He's trying to make some progress on the king side, but Nakamura senses the opportunity that now he can actually put pressure on Kramnik, and the move is knight e6, a really nice move actually. Now the tables have turned. Now it is Nakamura who is fighting for the advantage. Why? Because he's planning to capture this and then promote. Another threat is, of course, if rook takes d7, then knight f8 check, and that would be lost. Suddenly, it is Kramnik who has to be a bit careful. Of course, with decent play, this should still be a draw. But Nakamura is not the one who is fighting to survive. So the simplest move for Kramnik would have been to play bishop f6, and then just this. I mean, Nakamura has two pieces, so he will be able to push a bit, but Kramnik should be able to defend without much difficulty. By the way, one small point, rook d6 is not working because of knight f4 check. But still, this would have been a draw. But once again, we have to understand from psychological perspective for the whole game. Kramnik was pushing. Now after knight e6, suddenly the tables have turned, and it's not so easy to realign yourself, to adjust yourself with the new reality, especially when the time control is rapid. So Kramnik played the move rook d3 check. Then in this position, king e4 was played, rook d6, knight takes g5, rook takes d7. Now this should also be a draw, so Kramnik should have just played in this position. So he played rook e7, then knight e5. This is still like not the most accurate move, because once the king will move, let's say g7 h6 or something, then king f5 type of ideas, and this pawn might fall. Already things are not that easy, so maybe you should have played just rook b7 or maybe rook d6, and this shouldn't be too difficult. But as I said, practically now it is Nakamura who is pushing. It is Kramnik who has to defend, and he cracked under pressure. Rook e7, knight e5 check. He played the move bishop king f6, and he missed bishop d8. Kramnik lost the game. So it seems like, all right, he just blundered at the end. But it was not the blunder. It was actually the pressure that Nakamura put after the move knight e6. He recognized that moment. The whole game he was behind. The whole game he was just defending. But he sensed the opportunity that now I can push. Now Kramnik will be under pressure. And when that happens, even the best of the best, they crack under pressure. And this is exactly what happened with Kramnik, and Nakamura won the game. Thanks everyone for joining, and I'll see you in the next video.